Okay, talk to me about this chart. So the things that we've been looking at, or that it's been talking about, have been things like what? Advancement.
Advancement, first of all, yes.
Right.
Then
So what's
void, of course, if someone is receiving, if there's a mutual reception, or if there is what was the word that we just used? Prohibition.
Prohibition, translation of light, return of virtue. We've got all that stuff kind of going. So the first thing we'd look to see is what's advancing. So what's advancing in this chart?
Okay, so Mars, Moon, Sun, and that's it really.
So Mars, Moon, Sun,
Mercury,
and Jupiter. Jupiter's right on the Jupiter's at 10.
On the cusp, yeah.
So really, Jupiter is the most on some level. Jupiter and the Moon are two of the most, and then we've got Mercury and we've got the Sun. Now the Sun is the ruler of the ascendant, and Mercury is the ruler of the second. This is a singer. This is the most famous singer of the 19th century.
Okay. Right.
Not quite. And look at how the Mercury is moving away from the combustion of the Sun.
It is, yes. It's retrograde.
Okay, and so that's an interesting thing. What else do we have here? We've got this. What's the next thing we would? Excuse me. What's the next thing we'd look for?
Okay.
Connections.
With connections.
Applications.
Yes. Okay.
So who's applying?
Okay, who's applying? First, wait.
Where's Venus? Oh, there she is.
Moon is at 7 and it's applying to a sextile with Venus. It's wide, but
yes, it works.
Okay, it works. Okay. And then we have some? Oh, and wait, Sun is applying to Mars.
Sun separating.
Oh yeah, it's separating. What's wrong with me?
So that's a disregard. So there's a disregard between the Sun and Mars, a recent disregard.
Mm-hmm. Wait, how is Mars is at 28 and Sun is at 25?
Sun is at 0.
Yeah, it's at 0. Oh God, what's wrong with me? Okay. Right. Mercury is retrograde, so it's not gonna apply to Mars. It's gonna move further back.
But it is gonna apply. Who would? Oh, does it apply to anybody? No. It's so it's not applying. I thought it was, but it's retrograde. That's right. It's applying to Neptune technically.
Yeah, well, we don't care about that, do we?
We don't care about them. You're forgetting Venus and Saturn.
Venus and Saturn, yes.
And now, and using, okay, so if you remember, I was talking about the part of fortune, and using the part of fortune as a ruler of the ascendant. Notice that this was a singer. Notice that Venus is in the 10th house from the part of fortune with the ruler of the 10th from the part of fortune. So that's a good sign of wealth or being well. And look at how the Jupiter is in the 11th. That's called the acquisition from. So the 11th from the part of fortune is called the acquisition. So we got Jupiter, which usually gives big things.
And Jupiter would be in its joy in the 11th house.
Oh, that's true. So kind of technically from that standpoint, it would create a joy situation. So that is a very interesting thing. The other thing that I find interesting about it is that she was married to one of the, she was married to a composer who she traveled with. And so there is also the husband here. So
Ernesto Nicolini.
Say that again?
Ernesto Nicolini.
Yes, Nicolini. Right. Well, he was a tenor, but then didn't she marry Arditi? After that, I think Arditi was another. Maybe she had 2 or 3 husbands because Ernesto Nicolini is the tenor that she married. So and they sang together. So that makes a lot of sense. But then I thought she married Arditi, who was a composer and who wrote some of these things for her. But maybe I'm wrong. And then she married didn't she marry like some noble person later on, or did she just marry Nicolini?
Yeah, I think. Wait. Oh, she did. She divorced. Yeah. She wed 3 times.
I thought so.
Yeah. As a minor to Henry de Lacy, Baron of Will, which was probably the noble you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then Henry de Roger de, oh God, these names. Henry de Roger de Cahusac. And the marriage soon collapsed.
Oh, Henri Roger. Oh, Henri de Roger de Isaac. So, okay, so that was her first husband.
Yeah, yeah. Before
and
that,
then
she
Ernesto
studied Venus as
Nicolini.
a minor as well. Yeah, and then she married this Nicolini guy. Yeah.
Right, and she divorced him in following her divorce, married him in 1886, and then her last marriage was Baron Rolf Sederström. So that's I knew that there was another noble. There was a noble after Nicolini.
Exactly. She was married 3 times.
Okay, married 3 times. So we can. So that's interesting. So there's Jupiter on the cusp of the 7th.
Makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So that's it. Multiply. Remember, Jupiter multiplies what he touches. So that can certainly give us more than one, because we don't have any mutable signs. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because the mutable signs would be fertile, and it could also imply that there be more than one. But the Jupiter here is doing that implication. And then the fact that there is a connection with work and marriage as well.
Yeah.
Also, I tend to see Venus-Saturn connections in opera singers. Venus-Saturn opposition, Venus-Saturn square, conjunction, and usually it's about the discipline you need to get your voice together, to get your voice in. So there's there's a discipline aspect to, well, most musicians obviously, but there's this kind of need for discipline. And I've Pavarotti, Price, Patti, they've all got, I think even Domingo has it. Let me see if I got Domingo out here. But here's Price. She's got Venus square separating, Venus square Saturn.
Yeah, there is. It's separating, but yeah.
But so she's got that. Then we've got Pavarotti. Oh, wait. Pavarotti has Venus opposition, once again separating, but separating. Then we have, then we've got Domingo. I think he's got it too. Placido Domingo. Do we have it? What we have is Venus and Capricorn.
Yeah, and
so Venus, there's Venus Saturn right there.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Right, Venus Saturn is, so there's almost always in the opera singers, there's almost always a Venus Saturn connection. It would be interesting to see if there's any of that. You know, with Arthur Rubinstein, the famous pianist, he's got Venus and Aquarius as well. So, and I'm a classical musician. I've got Venus and Aquarius.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure we can find people that's not the case for. But I did find it very interesting that almost all of these opera singer charts, and especially these famous opera singer charts, there's a connection between Venus and Saturn. And this is one of the big, and we were talking about the conjunction, or the conjunction between Venus and Saturn, which is applying here. So the closest one, it looks like, is between, what is it, the Venus Saturn or the Moon Venus? So they're both wide. Oh wait, Moon Mars is the closest. Moon Jupiter is the closest.
Yeah.
So that's the closest. That's the closest applying aspect. Do we have any? What's that?
I don't see any more applying other than.
Yeah, it looks like it's Venus, Saturn, Moon, Jupiter, and Moon, Venus. Right? It looks like those are the three. So those are the main ones, and everything else is Mercury's retrograde. Sun is separating from Mars. So Sun and Mercury are both separating from Mars. And so so what's the implication then about? Oh, do we see any of the other things we've been looking for? Translation of light, or it doesn't really look like it. We don't really have any translations. We don't have any return of virtue. We don't have any prohibition or reformation. or anything like that. So this chart is pretty straightforward. What we don't have is we only have one system that's got reception, and it's this system here. Yes. The reception of Venus is pushing nature to Saturn, who is receiving her. So that's like the strongest aspect, in my opinion, or the most benefic. This Moon Jupiter square, remember last week we were talking about that the benefics can give benefit even if there isn't reception. But even more so, it's better if there is reception. There's no reception between the Moon and Jupiter, but the Jupiter can still give benefit. And the benefit would be through the 5th house of pleasure. And but she never had children. Yeah, so it didn't give that. Moon is in fall. Moon is in fall, but in a fertile sign. So she didn't have it through children. First triplicity ruler, that would be Sun, which is fertile. Wait, did she have children? Hold on a second. Does it say anything about kids?
Let me see.
Patti had no children, but was close to her nieces and nephews. Okay. The two-time. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Patti Lupone is a great grandniece and namesake. Have you ever heard of Patti Lupone?
Patti Lupone?
Patti Lupone. Patti Lupone was a famous Broadway actress. She starred in a famous Broadway show called Evita, about Evita Peron. And there's a song called "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." That comes from Evita. And Patti Lupone became a humongous star with Evita. She's a great grandniece of Adelina Patti.
Okay.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is.
She's a great grandniece of the most famous opera singer of the 19th century.
Yeah.
And possibly the greatest, considered maybe certainly of the full 19th century. Think about like the golden age of opera is considered from 1891, like the golden age, 1891 to about 1920 when Caruso died. So think she'd be already 48 in 1891. Her career was she lasted quite a long time. She continued on and on for a while, but the crux of her career is happening in the 1860s and 1870s. So that this person is really fully 19th century. You see what I'm saying? This person, even though she lived, there are recordings of Adelina Patti from the 1906, but this person really is a fully 19th century phenomena. She is one of the most important people of the 19th century and does not really leak over into the 20th century at all, which is the reason that I kind of wanted to use this chart. Because everybody else we've looked at is a 20th century person, right? But this is a 19th century person who experienced worldwide fame in the way that a Beyonce has now. Which is why I thought I would bring this chart up. So we can see that, but we really only see it from the part of fortune. We don't really see it otherwise in this chart, which I think is really interesting. Yeah. Now, what about some of the things that we were talking about? If a planet, one of the things was if the significator is a malefic, right? They were just talking about that. If the significator for something in the chart is a malefic. So in this particular chart, Mars is a significator for the 9th house, which would make, and remember, he's already the significator for pilgrimage, right? We learned that when we did the medieval chart, the medieval class. So looking at that, look at where Mars is. He's the only planet besides Saturn in his own sign.
His own sign, yes.
Which means that he can produce for the house. Patti traveled all over the world. She sang in America. She sang in South America. She sang in Europe. She was major in Europe, but she sang everywhere. She traveled all over the world, toured the world consistently. So once again, with this issue, and of course, remember, Bonatii or whoever gave pilgrimage to Mars because pilgrimages were known for being difficult journeys. And you would deal with troubles and problems and issues. And think in this time period, how did people get around? Boat and train. Even not train, coaches and boats.
Yes.
This is before the, you know, she's singing before the full industrial era, when all of the trains are created. That's late 19th century. She's mid 19th century. So she'd be traveling from place to place in a stagecoach or on a horse and then on a boat. These are all hard ways to travel.
They are. Also, Mars is also the ruler of a part of fortune.
Okay. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Yes, very good point.
Exactly.
And look at how it's in the 8th from the part of fortune.
Yes.
With the moon. And so that can be other people's money or managing an estate, or that could be difficult journeys. That could be difficult, right? That could be arduous, right? The ruler of the 9th is in the 8th from the part of fortune. That could, you know, she would travel with all kinds of jewels and she'd wear them on stage. You know, she could have been, there could have been highway robbers and stuff like, I mean, so she could have been, there could have been danger involved with travel for Adelina Patti.
There wasn't.
Right, so so it looks like there's quite a bit of travel, and by water and over the seas, right?
Yes.
But that more than likely there might have been a difficult, that there, you know, it could have been, you know, the conditions were not enjoyable. So, and maybe even dangerous. And look at how the Pluto is with the part of fortune.
Yes, very near to it.
And she started at like 16. You know, so she would have had to be protected. She would have had to have a chaperone ride with her. She's from a big family, so she probably would have had family members or older sisters or even the father with her or something like that, or the mother with her. But, you know, so it's just interesting to kind of look at something like that. Knowing that the 9th house is ruled by Mars, we know that there should be some kind of sting involved, right? There should be something sharp. It can still happen. It can still come about. So this is what they were saying. Same thing with the Saturn as ruler of the 7th. So he's the significator for marriage, which means even though he's in his own sign and he's with Venus, which helps him. So Saturn can produce it, but it couldn't produce one lasting marriage.
Because Jupiter is right on the cusp.
Because Jupiter's on the cusp. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Niccolini was a spendthrift that she ended up spending a lot of money on, or that might be Tetrazzini, but I'm almost positive it was Patti as well, that Niccolini was kind of a spendthrift, had expensive taste, but no money of his own, and that she foot the bill a lot. And look at how the ruler of the 8th is on the cusp of the 7th. So the partner's money. But also the ruler of the 8th could be big money from the partner, and she married all these nobles.
Of course, yeah.
She married 2 nobles, right? So, and there's nobility right there, the sun in the 7th. So there could be an issue. So nobility, etc., and wealth. She was a very wealthy woman. She lived in at the end of her life, she lived in a big palace. She lived in a palace in Wales at the end of her life. So,
the sun
you know,
the exaltation ruler of the part of the fortune as well.
Sun there as well, that's right. But it's interesting, it puts the sun in the 12th from the part of fortune then, but in the 8th once again. So there may have been dealing with estates or inheritances as well, or like I said, there could have been constant fear on travel because it was a lot more crazy, you know, back then. You know, so there could have been constant fear during travel. And there might have been some kind of issue of fear, or certainly there are financial issues around the marriages, right? With the 8th, with the 2nd from the 7th on the 7th. And there should be a possibility of marrying wealthy. But I just did a chart today where Jupiter was on the cusp of the 7th, and it can also represent too much generosity to the other person. And remember, the Saturn is the significator for the 7th house. So Saturn is disappointment. Saturn is delay. Saturn is, I never get what I want, right? Even though it's here with the Venus. Saturn is in his own sign, so it can give you what it wants, but it can still maybe make the husband a bore.
Yeah.
Right? Or, as a matter of fact, I think it even said here that she married a priggish but handsome Swede, many years her junior. And the Baron severely curtailed her social life.
Yeah.
That's Saturn, right? He cut down her domestic staff from 40 to 18. Saturn rules the sixth, too.
Yep.
He gave her the devotion and flattery that she needed, but became her sole legatee.
Yes.
There's eighth house involved. Right? So this guy, after her death, he married a much younger woman. So there we have the Saturn. So it looks like, so that marriage lasts. So with Niccolini, it wasn't, and was seemingly, look at this. So she lived with the French tenor Ernesto Niccolini for many years until following her divorce from Coe, she was able to marry him in 1886. That marriage lasted until his death and was seemingly happy, but Niccolini cut Patti out of his will, suggesting some tension in the last years. So there we've got it. And what happened with the other one? Engaged as a minor to Henri de Lossy, the marriage soon collapsed. Both had affairs, and Decaux was granted a legal separation. So there's the Saturn.
Yes.
Collapse of the first marriage, collapse of the affection in the second marriage, and then restricting her movement and social ability in the third.
Exactly. And even the first marriage, it says the union was dissolved with bitterness and cost her half her fortune.
There's the money.
Yeah, exactly. It says at the last line.
Oh my God. So you're right. The union was dissolved with, I didn't read that very last part, and cost her half her fortune. And there we are. So wait, what's going on with her money? So, there's that Mercury retrograde going to the Neptune.
Yes.
So her money, look at how her money is fucked. And look at how her money gets fucked up in marriage.
Exactly, yes.
And that there was issues around inheritance.
Wait, listen to this. The last husband, after her death, he married a much younger woman. Their only daughter, Brita, ended up as Patti's sole heir.
So wait a minute. So not even Patti's child, because Patti didn't have any fucking kids.
Exactly.
Her third husband marries another woman, and their child. This is some shit. Wow.
Exactly. Oh my God.
Wow. And look at this. The ruler of the fifth from the seventh. So husband's child. There it is.
There it is. Yes.
Her money. Same planet as her money.
Same planet in second house. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right?
Wow. Amazing. And you know what? And see, here's the other thing is she should have known love was going to bring bad fortune.
Yep.
Never had good fortune with love. It's all in the sixth house. Saturn rules it, so it can happen. It can happen.
Yeah, but
look, they both had affairs even. Look, we've got licentious sign on the ascendant. We've got Venus in licentious signs. We've got Saturn in licentious signs. We've got the moon and Venus and Mars and Scorpio ruling this. This is a very sexual chart.
Exactly. Hey, wait, what are the licentious sign again? Leo, Capricorn?
Leo, Capricorn, Taurus, and Aries. And I include Libra usually, and generally Scorpio and Libra. To be honest, I include a lot of them. I include the three water signs are very sexual. That I've just noticed from looking at charts, period. The three water signs are very, very sexual. You see the moon in water sign and moon Jupiter trining in water signs, or moon Venus trining in water signs. That person's a fucking slut. Seriously, I mean, I'm not even playing. see how we got the moon and the Mercury, the moon and the Mars in Scorpio, and the moon is squaring the Jupiter, you know, and Jupiter's the ruler of the fifth. You know, so this is a pretty sexual chart. And and the moon applying to the Venus.
Yeah, it is.
And right, we talk about Saturn as a corruptor. And so even you can even think about this. Saturn is a corruptor. Saturn is the ruler of the seventh. She was married and Venus is the ruler of marriage. She was married as a child. She was married as a minor to an older man. You know, so even Saturn corrupting in that respect of, you know, marrying her off to an older man, or an arranged marriage, which would be kind of a Saturnian type of marriage, right? So I thought this was, I mean, I didn't realize how interesting this chart was. I just thought it'd be interesting to see a chart that we haven't looked at quite yet.
Damn, the thing with the money and marriages, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And how connected everything really is with this chart in money and marriages. That's really quite an interesting thing. And I really.
The most interesting thing for me was how her money went to his
daughter.
Right?
Went to his daughter, right? Went to his daughter, not her daughter, but his daughter. That's outrageous. I mean, the thought. Let me just say that again. Because I read it too, but I didn't read all of it.
Wait.
Yeah, he gave her to their only daughter, Brita Yvonne Sederström, ended up as Patti's sole heir. Wow.
I know, right? He cut down her domestic staff from 40 to 18, but gave her the devotion and flattery she needed, becoming her sole legatee. After her death, he married a much younger woman, and their only daughter ended up as Patti's sole heir. Wow.
Wow.
I know, right?
Interesting. Hey, Patti developed a love for billiards and became a reputable player. Billiards is ruled by the fifth house. Right, so all games, right? Games are all the fifth house. And notice that, remember, the moon is squaring the Jupiter.
Yeah.
And the Jupiter's on the seventh, making guest appearances at many billiard events for exhibition matches and fancy shot displays.
Wow.
Go, girl.
Yeah. Wait, read this. There, she had a $2,000 billiard table installed and her own private theater.
Oh my God. And a miniature version of the one at Bayreuth. Oh my God. And Bayreuth is, if you've ever heard, there's a composer by the name of Richard Wagner who wrote a bunch of operas. Okay, so Bayreuth is the theater that he built. Bayreuth is a town and his opera house is in Bayreuth. So she basically did a miniature version of Bayreuth. So Bayreuth didn't open until 1876. So I wonder when she had it created.
She is.
How what?
I love how extra she was.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, that was the way. It's actually called the Grand Manor. The Grand Manor was to have these, basically it was called, because think about it, in the 19th century, think about too, in the 19th century in India, right? Because you were in India, you would have been living in India then. Mm-hmm. The way to show largesse was to act like royalty.
Exactly.
And look at that dress that she has on, not the one that says Adelina Patti, but the one that says Adelina Patti as Lady Harriet and Martha. You see that one?
Adelina Patti as...
It's on the left.
Wait.
It's right next to personal life, to where it says personal life.
Oh, yes, I see it.
Okay, you see that photo? Look at the hem of the dress. That kind of fur hem with the black dots. Royalty wore that shit.
Exactly.
So the whole thing was to, when if you were at, because think, this is a woman that sang for kings and queens. This was Queen Victoria's favorite singer.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right? And so command performances for the queen and all of that stuff. And so they just imitated them. Wow. So it's exactly like being, that's why the sun rules royalty, but it also rules fame.
Wow.
Such an interesting, I'm so glad we brought this chart out because she's so,
I know, right?
So interesting, really. I just can't.
Wait, read this. What? Patti is thought by some to have had a dalliance with the tenor Mario, who is said to have bragged at Patti's first wedding that he had already made love to her many times. There's the licentious
Yes.
Yeah.
There's licentious signs. And notice that it says the marriage soon collapsed. Both had affairs. They'd be talking of that.
Exactly. Wow.
Wait, it was before her first marriage.
Yeah.
So he was fucking her before she was married to him.
Yes.
Wait, where is this? Patti is said to have, where did you read that?
It's the very first paragraph of the personal life. Patti is thought by some to have
Had a dalliance with the tenor Mario, who is said to have bragged at Patti's first wedding. So she got married to him in 1868 when she was 15.
Yep.
15. She's born 1843.
Damn.
Oh, no, 20. No, 28, 23, 25. She's born in 43. Now, why do they say she was married off to him as a minor?
Engaged to a minor to Henry de Lacy, Baron of Will, Patti wed 3 times. First
Got it. So she was engaged to him as a minor, but she married him.
No, there's another Henry.
It's a different person. Got it. Okay, so she was engaged to Henri de Lacy, but she married Henri de Roger de Caïsac. Got it.
Yeah, and it was at that wedding where Mario bragged about making love to her.
Got it. So that's when she's 23. So he screwed her sometime before then. Woo!
Then Patti she married Nicolini, and then the Baron Rolf Cederstrom.
Looks like she was having an affair with Nicolini during the marriage, right? Mm-hmm. So she then lived with the French tenor for many years until following her divorce with Coe. She was able to marry him. Damn. She didn't marry him until after she was divorced in 1885. She lived with him until after the divorce was real.
Damn, Patti, get it, girl.
Get it. And that's probably why it cost her half her fortune, because she was living with Nicolini.
Yep.
So he could he could prove infidelity.
Yes. Yeah, probably. Damn.
And so that's why wow. And here's the thing. Adelina Patti is the what's the word I'm looking for? She's the model of virginal feminine of the 19th century virginal girl woman. Like, look at how small she is and how young she looks. Yeah. And if you see other pictures of her, look at that portrait at the top of the page. The portraits by Franz Winterhalter. And the other one, the Adelina Patti one with her in the wedding looking stuff. Look at like what a child girl she looks like, a child woman she looks like.
Yeah.
That was huge. That was a really huge aspect of 19th century culture, of this perfect virginal child woman.
Yeah.
And so we have that, but it's not the truth. Let's go back to this chart for just a second and see if we can find that.
Yes, let's do. Damn, we were thinking that this chart is very vanilla, but then it turned out to be.
I know. I was totally thinking this chart was vanilla.
Yeah.
I was totally thinking that.
We were like, there's no aspects, and then we went into it, and wow.
I know, but then we see how it really shows.
Exactly.
I think this doesn't. If anything, rather, what I think it does do is this. I hate to do it, but I hate looking at out of sign aspects. But I do tend to, if a planet is combust, I do tend to count it. And so that would mean that the moon, that the ruler of the ascendant is with Mercury, who rules youth and young people.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because with Venus, certainly this person was known for the Venus Saturn. They were known for their work and discipline in music, right? So if we look at that for 10th house, it doesn't include this. It doesn't include the kind of virginal girl woman thing that I'm talking about, because that's part of the larger gestalt of the world at the time, right? So this doesn't say that this person is a girl woman. Yes, it does. It says this person is a youthful looking person.
Yeah, it could mean that. Yes.
That's what I think it's, right? This person looks youthful, and as a result of kind of fitting into that girl-woman sensibility, they were able to, that was a part of her fame as well. Like, because it's interesting, the singers that, even the singers up until, really until we get to Wagner, up until we get to the Wagnerian sopranos, everybody, and even the roles, like all of the roles that that Patti would have sung, we call them ingenue, right? So, or rules. Ingenue basically is the young, fresh young virgin, yet fresh young virginal female looking for the perfect man, and so it would be things like Juliet and Romeo and Juliet, which she played. Marguerite and Faust, who's seduced, you know, things like that. So these kind of virginal characters who come up against some kind of adversity, that starts changing in the latter part of the 19th century with Wagner and the Valkyries and, you know, and Tristan and Isolde and all of that kind of stuff, where the female character starts taking on this godlike strength and starts becoming more than a woman, but also a deity. And where the man is redeemed through the love of the woman. So that's also kind of happening at the same time as this more old-fashioned sense of, you know, the virgin who dies of madness because she can't handle adversity, which is what a lot of the roles that Patti would be singing. So you had rules like Lucia di Lammermoor and I Puritani, where the heroine goes mad because something negative happens to her and she can't handle it. And in one, she ends up killing, she's supposed to marry one guy, her brother makes her marry another guy, and she breaks and she has a psychotic break and kills the other guy and shows up at the wedding ceremony, you know, pretending that she's marrying her real beloved. You know, so that's kind of the archetype of womanhood that was really held up and that Adelina Patti really fully embodies. But we don't see it in this chart necessarily. I don't think. It's always been about how men see women, to the ruination of every fucking woman, generally. But it's all about that. But this doesn't really show that. This doesn't really talk about that. I mean, like I said, this is the only thing that gives us an idea that this is a chart of someone diminutive and youthful, possibly. Right. Aside from that, there's nothing really that shows that, because the sun, you know, at some point, I guess maybe when we get into horary down the road, we'll start looking at the types of bodies that are represented by the planets and the signs and all of that. When we get into body types, we haven't really looked at that. That'll be something fun to look at.
Yeah, we can do one session on that as well. It would be interesting.
Yeah, because that's how we really identify the person in a chart. Exactly. And, you know, and how the physicality, and people are always saying, oh, guess my ascendant, you know, or people even write, they say, supposedly the chart's supposed to, you know, how would I go about doing that? And, you know, certainly I've definitely done it before. I had a chart of another person and he was dating a guy, and he was dating this guy. It was a new romance. And was it a horary that I was using? I was using the natal and a horary, maybe, which is typical of me. And from the horary, I said, this person should be really involved with a group of people. This person should be involved with like a brotherhood or a group. And he's like, yeah, he's got like this. That's really common in gay male culture, is often you even have like groups of people who all hang out together and have sex together, etc. And he was kind of involved in a group like that. And then when I looked at the chart again, I gave it to him. I go, this person is short, skinny, and hairy, and should have intense eyes. And he pulls up the phone. And shows me a picture, and it's exactly. So it can be done. It can be done. It can be done. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions?
I think it's an an entire chapter on this, like how to identify a thief, because a thief would be the seventh house.
Yeah. How to identify what? A piece?
A thief, like a robber.
Tooth?
If you want to find out who's who stole.
Oh, a
something.
thief. A thief.
Yeah.
Yes, a thief. A thief. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. And there's a huge. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that makes the seventh house in Lily so huge.
Yeah.
Is there's all this stuff about finding the name of the person based on the planet, finding what the person looks like, where they went to, how to, where they're going, where to find them. Yeah, everything. It's a huge thing. So, and it starts though with the ascendant. It starts with finding how the person looks from the ascendant. And in every horary book, that will be not just horary, but also I just didn't do it when we looked at the Bonatii, but also in the natal ones as well. They will talk about what all the planets look like.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions about what we talked about today?
No, I think that chart was really something, and we discussed everything in that.
Yeah, I didn't expect to. I had no expectation at all with that chart. I just thought, something that we haven't looked at before, and I didn't really know her biographically.
Exactly. We were judging that chart, and then that chart was like, "You dare judge me?"
Yes, exactly. It was like, you know what? Sorry, y'all aren't what you think.